I know you guys have been waiting for this, and so have I. It's time for me to get into my NBA predictions for the 2024-2025 NBA season. Let's get into it. And starting off in the Eastern Conference, I have the Brooklyn Nets coming in last place. This is pretty obvious considering the fact that they're just not a good team right now, and they're in tank mode. Hopefully they can get a good draft pick if they have any, and we'll just have to see where their season goes. And coming in 14th place is the Washington Wizards. Similar to the Brooklyn Nets, they're just not a good team right now. And with your star players being Kyle Kuzma and Jordan Poole, it's not really a recipe for success. So I think they're going to come pretty bottom in their conference. And in 13th, I have the Toronto Raptors. It was really tough for me to have to put them here, but their roster isn't moving me as a top team, especially when your only star player is Scotty Barnes. It's going to be difficult for him to have to carry this roster to success, and I just don't think he'll be able to get it done alone. In 12th place is the Detroit Pistons, which I think they're going to definitely have way better of a season than they did last year, and I think Cade Cunningham's really going to improve, especially with their draft pick, Ron Holland. I think he's going to be a great fit for this team. And they're not going to be great, but they're going to be way better than they did last year. And in 11th is the Chicago Bulls. Losing Alex Caruso is a very crucial piece to your offense and defense, but you did gain Lonzo Ball back, and when he is healthy, he can be really good. But that's just a what-if statement if he can be healthy. Besides that, this roster is struggling. Zach LaVine's probably going to get traded, and I don't know about Josh Giddey on this roster. 10th place is the Charlotte Hornets. Similar reason to the Chicago Bulls. Their roster's just not at the best place right now, but LaMelo Ball has proven when he's healthy, he is an all-star player, and I think he will be healthy this season, or at least healthy enough to lead them to the 10th seed. And the 9th seed is the Atlanta Hawks. It sucks for me to say this, but Trae Young is really struggling. He's a great player, it's just everything around him is failing. They did draft that Zachariah Fisher, but I don't know if he's going to be the best fit. He was a wing when I think they could have done better. They did remove DeJounte Murray, which was good, but their roster still might not be good enough in this Eastern Conference. In the 8th seed, I have the Miami Heat. It's going to be a struggle this year for them to be higher than this because Jimmy Butler has stated he's willing to leave Miami after the season, and Bam Adebayo is a great player, but really his talent won't last forever, so it's going to be confusing for the team to see how far they can make it. In the 7th seed, I have the Cleveland Cavaliers. This is going to be a huge fall off from them, going from, I believe, the 4th seed or something like that, all the way down to the 7th seed. I think they're just going to be struggling. Donovan Mitchell's a great player, and everyone around him's all right, but I just don't know if they're going to be really that competitive this year. And the Orlando Magic will be coming in the 6th seed. They will fall off one placement from last year, but I think it's going to be okay for them. Paolo Banchero is really good, and I think he's going to develop a lot this season, and his roster around him really can develop as well, so this team is definitely a sleeper for the seeding. The Philadelphia 76ers is definitely a tough one to predict. I do think they will be the 5th seed this year, and reason being is Joel Embiid has stated he doesn't want to play back-to-back games in the season, and Paul George, he's a great player when he's healthy, but he is known for being injured a lot, and I think this roster is going to be struggling. Tyrese Maxey is going to have to carry this team heavily. And the Indiana Pacers, I think, will be coming in as the 4th seed. I'm really high on them this year as a good team. I think Tyrese Halliburton is a great player, and I think he is definitely going to be getting the good looks at him instead of like negativity getting looked at him. And the roster around him is okay, but Pascal Siakam's good, Miles Turner's is good, and I think this roster is going to give the higher seedings a run for their money this year. Milwaukee Bucks will be the 3 seed this year in the Eastern Conference. A healthy Giannis is a MVP candidate, Giannis, and I think that's what the case is going to be this year. He's going to help this roster a lot, and I think Damian Lillard will have a huge bounce back year where he wasn't quite as what we expected or wanted from him last season. I think we're going to get that expectation back this year. In the 2nd seed will be the New York Knicks. This was really questionable between whether I should put them here or the next team up, but I think the Knicks are going to be a very dominant force this year. You know, they brought in the Villanova guys. They brought in Mikal Bridges. They kept Josh Hart. They kept Jalen Brunson. Sadly, they did remove Dante DiVincenzo, but they made up for it in getting the big Per, aka Karl Anthony Towns. And I think this team will make it to the second seed. And in the 1 seed is the Boston Celtics. It makes sense. They just came off a win for the championship. I think they're still the most powerful roster in all of the NBA right now, maybe except for one team, but I'll get to them later. But I do think the Celtics are still very dominant. They're going to have a great season, and they're still going to end up as the 1 seed. And we'll have to see how their playoff hopes look. And the 15th seed in the Western Conference will be the Portland Trail Blazers. This conference will be easily the hardest out of the two to predict, just because there are such dominant forces in the West. And sadly, Portland's going to have to end up last. Next, in the 14th seed will be the Utah Jazz. I think this roster is probably one of my favorite up-and-coming teams, but they're still not there yet. And until they are, they're just going to have to end up at the 14th spot. Lauri Markkanen can only take them so far. And in the 13th seed, I have the Los Angeles Clippers. They're going to fall off heavily this year, especially because at the time I'm recording this video, Kawhi Leonard has been announced out indefinitely for the NBA season, meaning James Harden is going to have to carry this roster, and I don't think that's a recipe for success right now, and they're just going to have a bad year, sadly for them. And in the 12th seed, it hurts me to say this knowing this is my favorite team, but the Golden State Warriors end up in 12th. It hurts me to say this, but it has to be done. The West is so difficult, and they're going to miss out on playoffs. Losing Clay wasn't huge for them, and that's not the problem. The problem is they didn't get anyone in the offseason. They didn't go after Lauri Markkanen. They got Buddy Hield, but is he really going to take them farther? Probably not. So I think this year is going to be a downfall for them. Next up is LeBron James's franchise, also known as the Los Angeles Lakers. LeBron is obviously making the shots here. I don't think this franchise is taking themselves seriously enough to make a playoff push. Yes, Anthony Davis and LeBron James are still a great duo, but one, you drafted Bronny, which, good for you, you get the father and son duo, but that's not helping your team at all. Dalton Connect's good, but that's really it from the draft. You made the claims, oh, we're going to go get people in the offseason, and proceeded to do nothing, so I think they're just not taking themselves seriously. This managership of this franchise sucks. The coaching, I hope JJ Redick is a good coach in the future, but this is not a good look for him to be coaching a team he's friends with one of the players on, so I just can't take this franchise serious enough to make a playoff push. Time for the Houston Rockets to make a playoff push, and this might be the one. Now, they are the 10 seed, I think, and that still gets them playing. Now, do I think they'll make it farther? Maybe, maybe not. But this is as far as I have them going. They're still a great roster. Alperen Sengun is really, really developing. They got, in my opinion, one of the best rookies in this draft class, Reed Shepherd, and this is going to help them a lot. They still have a great young core, and this is definitely going to be a good year for them. And in the 9th seed, I have the San Antonio Spurs with their star player, Victor Wembanyama. I love Victor Wembanyama, and this team is really, really getting better. Greg Popovich was able to bring in Chris Paul, and Chris Paul knows how to develop a player. And right now, he probably got the best job getting to mentor Wemby, and I think this team is going to really be good this year, and I think people are really sleeping on them. Stephon Castle's a great pick. He's going to help out a lot, and I think this roster is ready for a playoff push. In the 8th seed, I have the New Orleans Pelicans. I think this team is going to be really good this year. Way better than they did last season. They brought in DeJounte Murray, which is going to help a lot. And when Zion's healthy, he's a great player. And I think he's going to be healthy this year. Or at least healthy enough to take them to the 8th seed. In the 7th seed, I have the Phoenix Suns. I get when people like the Phoenix Suns and think they're always going to be a threat. But last year, you literally got swept by Anthony Edwards, and right now your roster hasn't changed a lot fully, unless I just don't know ball. Devin Booker's a great player. Bradley Beal's very overrated. Kevin Durant, he's getting older. Still a good player, though. But this team just can't compete in this kind of conference. In the 6th seed, I have the Sacramento Kings. This team is a very entertaining team to watch. They just recently got DeMar DeRozan, which is going to help their offense severely. And now they have a trio here that's going to be very unstoppable in De'Aaron Fox, DeMar DeRozan, and Domantas Sabonis, who I think Sabonis is going to have such a good exploding year for him. He's going to do very good, as well as this team, bringing them back to higher expectations. And in the top 5 for the West, I have the Timberwolves. Truly, I think they could go from 5 to 1 or in any of that in between. I think this whole Western Conference can, from like 7 to 1, can go either way. Just because it's so dominant in the West that it can be, anything can happen. But I do think the Timberwolves will be the 5th seed, not because they're bad or anything, just because the teams ahead of them are really good. In the 4th seed, I have the Dallas Mavericks. Truly, I think Luka Doncic is a great offensive player, but that's, I think, where it stops. I don't see a lot of the hype in Luka like everyone else does, but I will admit he's still a great player by all means, and his roster's okay. Kyrie Irving's good, and I think they're going to end up in the 4th seed. They could be higher depending on what they do with Derek Lively, whether they put him as a starter or not, and Klay Thompson might help a bit on the defense. I don't think the offense will be crazy, but still a good addition. In the 3 seed, I have the Memphis Grizzlies. Maybe I'm high on them a lot more than other people are, and that's okay. I think this team is truly going to be great. Ja Morant's a great player. They have Jaren Jackson Jr., and his struggles are rebounding, no problem, because they have Zach Edey there. And I think this is one of the best rosters in the league, but not the best, but still a great team. And I think they're going to have a huge comeback season, and people might be sleeping on them this year. In the 2 seed, I have the Denver Nuggets. I think this team is still very good. Obviously, Nikola Jokic is a 3-time MVP. He is who he is. Nothing more to be said. It will be interesting to see what they do with Aaron Gordon or Michael Porter Jr. throughout the season. But if all stays the same, they could be a good team. They did lose KCP, but I still think they're going to be a solid team. And in the 1 seed, it's going to be the OKC Thunder, in my opinion. Oh my goodness, this roster is insane. They have everything on this team, and this team is going to be easily the most dominant, the best team in the whole league, and they're going to be scary to play against. They're going to be scary to play against in the playoffs. All of their players have great power and potential. Jalen Williams is great. Obviously, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander was the runner-up for MVP. They got Alex Caruso. They got Isaiah Hartenstein as their 6th man. It's going to be great. They have Chet Holmgren. This roster is going to be overpowered. And before I get into my playoff predictions as well as my award predictions, I do want to say I have the San Antonio Spurs winning the in-season tournament. I know a lot of people don't care for this tournament, and there's a lot of improvements they could make on it, but I'll still predict anyways. I think it'll be the Spurs. This award basically goes to like a play-in type team who won't make playoffs, or they do as a 10 or 9 seed, and I think that's perfect for the Spurs to win. It's going to just help give confidence to Wemby, and it doesn't mean much, but I think they'll win. And now to get into my award predictions, starting off with the MVP, I have Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. He is such a good player. He came in second for the MVP last season. They gave it to Jokic mostly because he can have the stat line. 3-time MVP in 4 years. Shai is really good, and I think it's time for him to win the MVP, and I think the runner-up will be Luka Doncic. Now for the Defensive Player of the Year, I think it's going to be Victor Wembanyama. Enough said. He was second place for it last year. Rudy Gobert won it, though. Wemby's going to win it this year. He's such a great defensive player. And yeah, nothing else to be said. The runner-up will be Chet Holmgren, another player just as tall, great blocker, and he'll be the runner-up. I think for Rookie of the Year, it will be Reed Shepherd. Obviously, people make jokes about this draft class, how they don't know anyone in it except for Bronny. But from my little research, is Reed Sheppard's a great offensive player. He's a great fit for the Houston Rockets, and he's gonna do good for them. And he'll win it. But the runner-up will be Zach Edey. Zach could honestly win it as well, but I think Reed Sheppard will do more for his team than Zach will for his. And sixth man of the year will go to Donte DiVincenzo. Donte's a great scorer. He's a great shooter. He's going to help this roster, obviously, from being a six man. And I'm not going to give you a runner-up because I don't know enough about six mans, but Donte will definitely be a good six man of the year. And for most improved player of the year, I have Jalen Johnson. This is an interesting one because normally most improved goes to the player that, like, he's right there on the cusp of becoming an all-star. Now, I don't think he's going to be there yet because it's so difficult for teams to have more than one all-star. Obviously, I'm referring to Trae Young, but I think he's right there. Now, his all-star appearances will come, but I still think he should win it. And like six man of the year, I'm not going to give you a runner-up. And for coach of the year, I have Taylor Jenkins. I believe he is the current coach of the Memphis Grizzlies. And from what I know about coach of the year is they give it to a coach that manages to get his team to go from rough standing to a pretty good standing. And I think that's going to be him because the Memphis Grizzlies did not do good last year. And I have them making third in the West. So I think that's going to earn him coach of the year. And now for my Western Conference Finals predictions as well as my East. I have the OKC Thunder taking on the Memphis Grizzlies. I think they're going to be this matchup because both teams have the best rosters in the West. And they're both good teams and they both have great point guards leading their teams. One team has an MVP and the other doesn't. I'm referring to Shea if he wins. And I think this is going to be a huge battle. But I do have the OKC Thunder advancing to the finals. And in the Eastern Conference Finals, I have the Boston Celtics facing off against the New York Knicks. I think this should have been the matchup last year, but due to the Knicks getting hurt, they were unable to make it. The Knicks have added Karl-Anthony Towns, and their roster is still good enough for the finals anyways. I do think the Knicks advance, and they do defeat the reigning NBA champions, the Boston Celtics. Meaning the NBA championship matchup will be the OKC Thunder taking on the New York Knicks. Now, this is a crazy matchup because both teams' primary colors are orange and blue, and I think both teams have the best rosters for the East and for the West, and it's going to be a battle, but I do think the New York Knicks are going to defeat the OKC Thunder. Even though I think the OKC Thunder are better, I think the Knicks are going to be able to take this home in a Game 7 series. It's going to be one of the best finals in a long time, and I think the Knicks take it home. And with the Knicks winning the championship, it only makes sense their star player Jalen Brunson wins Finals MVP, capping off an amazing NBA season. I think this will be very fun, very joyful for all fans, unless your fans are in the bottom 5 of the East or West. But besides that, it's going to be a very entertaining season, I hope, and I believe. And now that's going to be it for today's video. I truly hope you guys enjoyed it. I don't think all of these predictions will come true. I hope they do though. But I just hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, make sure to share it with your friends, like the video, subscribe. You can see more content I have posted on my channel. And yeah, I hope you guys all enjoyed.